My name is Tiffany Garcia, and this is my personal narrative entitled On the Rocks. Standing atop the diving block, I felt the usual pre-dive jitters. It began with my stomach. I could feel my insides churning and begging me to stop forcing myself into what my mind and body thought was a dangerous situation. This was then followed by increased heart rate and sweaty palms. Sometimes I could barely hold on to the end of the diving block as the bell sounded for my race to start. You would think after 4 years of being on the swim and water polo team that this would be routine, right? Wrong. Nervousness would set as soon as the day before a competition, but would disappear the second my head hit the clear blue chlorinated water I'd spent so much of my life in. But as soon as my head hit that water, I was gone. Before I knew it, I was speeding through the water as if my life depended on it. My previous feelings of agony were a distant memory, long gone and even forgotten when my head broke water upon finishing the race to the awaiting cheers and hugs from my coach and teammates. When you look at a person, it's hard to determine the types of fears they harbor inside. We see TV shows about people who are afraid of the most random objects and activities, and we hopefully try and sympathize and understand what one another are going through, however ridiculous the fear may be. As a kid, I never walked along fences, climbed trees, or even walked along bridges at the playground. As an adult, I avoided similar situations without revealing to anyone that I was actually afraid of heights. Looking back, I feel as if I missed out on so many of the rewarding experiences that come along with the challenge of conquering your fears. Over the course of the 4 years that were so far removed from my present self, I had undergone many transformations in multiple aspects of my life. Upon entering college, I had crossed many bridges, social, intellectual, personal, that were both mentally and emotionally challenging. However, be that as it may, it was never in my mind to get back into the sports I had dedicated so much of my high school life to. I invested more time immersing myself in school and building relationships with people who still today make me feel as if I never moved away from home, but rather I moved to another family that makes me feel just as loved. Keeping busy has allowed me to forget the ever-looming fear of heights that plagued my life for over 20 years. But here I am, almost 4 years later, scheduling a 5-hour indoor rock climbing trip with my boyfriend, which, by the way, the walls were up to 150 feet. However, having a constant string of things to do in college has made me blind to the fact that I had never been forced to face my fear of heights. It seemed like a good idea at first to use this trip as an excuse to have someone I trust to help me through what could possibly be the most frightening moment of my life. But boy, was I wrong. The weeks that preceded the date of our rock climbing trip were consisted of small intermittent episodes of what I had previously described as pre-dive jitters. I would be alone somewhere when all of a sudden my mind would remind me and my body of what was to come. Or my boyfriend would excitedly remind me that we were going and of how excited and proud he was of me that I was actually doing what I hated most, completely eliminating the chance of me ever backing out. Upon arrival of the rock climbing gym, we were quickly prompted to rent these funny pair of leather shoes that were supposed to make climbing easy. Afterwards, we were herded into the classroom to endure a 2-hour class on belaying, in which I quickly realized that the ropes did not automatically lock, and that we were to learn the proper knots and ways to communicate to our partners when we needed more slack or tension, and most importantly, when we wanted to be let down. My head was spinning with all the information and mixed feelings I was having about climbing, but before I knew it, I was all strapped in and ready to go. I pulled myself up the wall, rock after rock, increasing the distance between me and safety. I could feel my legs shake with each moment I spent thinking about which rock would lead me to the appropriate path to the top. At one point, I remember looking down and seeing how far I had gone up, and the most horrifying thoughts rushed through my head. What if the rope frayed and I fell to a dramatic death in front of my class? What if my boyfriend let the rope slip through his hands and I fell without him having enough time or strength to catch me? And without warning, those thoughts had dissipated and I continued the ascent to the top, and before I knew it, I was there. As I look back at these two instances, both very similar in relation to my fear, I can almost laugh at how ridiculous it was that I was ever afraid. Granted, heights are a common phobia among the general population. I feel as though it was more than that. I wasn't afraid of heights, really. I was afraid of the consequences of putting myself into those situations and just being exposed. And once those consequences of my fear were realized, I had little reason to be afraid. Thanks for listening.